You birth how you live. And that's why BIRTHFIT is a lifestyle. And that's why radical responsibility is one of our favorite phrases. And, nobody's going to do it for you. You have to do it. We can hold your hand, we can spot your lifts, but you're going to have to reach through another dimension to bring your baby earthside. And it can be so much fun. Like, you get to do this. How cool is that?
Here we go, moms and dads and providers out there. We know you're listening to this awesome thing that God has called us to do, called the Experience Miracles Podcast, where we're always talking about hope, answers for your whole family, and then drug-free healthcare. Let's go, baby. So with this one, we have one of my absolutely take the world by storm with this message besties, Dr. Lindsey Matthews Cantu, and I get to take this 2 to 3 minutes to introduce this incredible world changer. And we'll get to this part. She will get to this part. I'm definitely not stealing Miss Vera's thunder. I've met your beautiful little baby girl, and she was just a few months old when I met her, and she's already, by a large margin, tougher than me. So we will make sure she gets her credit here today, too. So preventing the perfect storm and really serving families with chronic health challenges is exactly what we're all about with this podcast. And the way we do that first and best is we start by empowering parents. We start by empowering moms, because we know that so often it's you moms who are taking that charge and taking that lead to get your family healthy, to get the information, the resources, the doctors, the connections that you need to do that. And so we love empowerment like you wouldn't believe here on the Experience Miracles podcast and with the PX Docs platform. And then if we want to really 1 + 1 equals 11 for impact for your family, that message, the earlier in your journey to your family that we can come alongside you and empower you and inform you, like real, actual informed choice. We'll have that conversation with Lindsey today. And then in our world, and adjust you and get your nervous system rocking as well. Well, that empowering impact that is applied earlier in your journey to your family will then have the most impact, because healthier moms is a real basic way to say it, but it's real true. Healthier moms equal healthier babies and healthier families. So we have brought on a very special guest. I truly feel the foremost expert in this conversation in the world. And I don't say that lightly. I just respect this woman immensely with her experience and her knowledge and her passion. And if she didn't have enough of that already, she's got her beautiful baby on with us today that really just took that to the nth degree, as she will describe. You may know Lindsey as the CEO of BIRTHFIT, which she started back in 2013. She spent well over 10 years, a decade plus, and I feel like BIRTHFIT has just found another stride. You guys are doing amazing things right now. I just feel the fire, and I feel the empowerment from BIRTHFIT, the community, and everybody involved. And they're helping women train and prepare their bodies for pregnancy and healing postpartum. This is a brilliant community that doesn't just take a small, I don't want to call it a small chunk, but one chunk of the journey and focus there. They really support all the way through that transition. Full on trailblazer. That word doesn't do it justice here in my notes, but really changing how we view birth, and quite literally being a catalyst for healthier generations to come. And then this past year, we're going to skip over the part because I want you to tell the part where my craziness came into your world with Dr. Morgan and all of that. So I won't read that section. You get to share that, and you're definitely going to share all the amazingness of the beautiful, impactful little blessing there who is sleeping on you right now, Miss Vera. So Lindsey, thank you for jamming and hanging and smiling there as I talked all about you. I know how not always fun that is, and you just want to get into the stuff and serve other moms and serve other families. So I'll give you, I gave a lot of your story there. So what I want to do with the first question is take your story right into a certain component of the story that I would love for you to double down. So you were rocking BIRTHFIT, you were rocking CrossFit, you were rocking all these different things. You understood movement, you understood wellness. You even were a chiropractor at that time, went to one of those world-class chiropractic institutions out there in Southern California with some of our good friends. And so it took a little bit before you arrived to this nervous system focused chiropractic. And so Within your story, kind of getting right to that part of it, because I know that's been a huge accelerant to what you're doing with BIRTHFIT and with us at PX right now. What in your words, when did that part of your story really emerge? How did it emerge? And then just keep rolling with it. How does it affect what you're working on and doing every single day? And then we'll go to your baby girl after that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I thought you were going to introduce me for the whole episode. That's quite the intro. Yeah, so thank you very much. And it's an honor to be here with you, the rest of the crew, and to be speaking directly to parents. I think this is gold right now, and so necessary. For those of you that don't know a little bit about BIRTHFIT, it's the intersection. It started for me as the intersection of chiropractic coaching, like strength and conditioning coaching, CrossFit coaching, movement coaching, and my doula work. I was a doula. I'm retired right now. May come out of retirement at some point. I don't know. But that's where I started BIRTHFIT, and it simply started as a blog, and then classes were born. So at that time, this was probably, I want to say around 2011, and I graduated chiropractic school in 2009, and I was working in, let's call it, sports rehab world, and I loved it because of the movement aspect of it. And I had, I share this on BIRTHFIT and other podcasts, but like, my personal journey, I had gotten a bit lost, which makes sense that I had gotten a bit lost in my chiropractic journey. So right out of chiropractic school, I was hired in the industry, as we call it, like the Hollywood industry. And so I was traveling around, working on set for different movies, getting actors, actresses ready for their biggest stunts, and we're also working, it was like a little small team of us working with professional athletes, Olympic athletes down at the training center in Los Angeles. It was wild. Like for me, coming right out of school and working on the set of Mission Impossible, or being at a Laker game, or just the best soccer player in the world, was just like blowing my mind. But at the same time, it was not fulfilling to me. And when I had a patient that asked me to attend her birth, and back it up even more, like how she wanted to get ready for pregnancy, wanted to get ready for birth, because she was in a TV show and she wanted it to be, an efficient recovery in her off season. And I was like, well, that makes sense. Like that question really makes sense. Like she wants to get her mind, body, and soul ready for birth, ready for pregnancy, ready for conception, and then be super efficient at the recovery aspect of it so that she can go back and record season 8, season 9, season 10, whatever. So that's when I started my research into birth. And, we did not have much research into birth and pregnancy in school, especially the school I went to, as you mentioned. They were quite fear-based in even adjusting women in the 3rd trimester. And I don't know, I don't even think I'm allowed to go back to talk on that campus, since I said adjust women in the 3rd trimester in one of my talks. But anyways, so that's when I started taking classes. And, at the time it was like super underground stuff. But long story short, I became a doula. I attended birth. I started attending births. I attended this woman's birth, and I started attending different patients' clients' birth. And this is where I realized, oh my God, like this is the Olympics. This is everything. This is the biggest sport of a woman's life. And, as somebody that came from, working with athletes in the NBA finals or the World Cup or on movie sets, like none of that even compared in my eyes to me observing, sitting, watching a woman go through her freaking birth experience. And it was just like mind melting at the time, because I was somebody that grew up standard American, standard American diet, standard American antibiotics, standard American, you go to the hospital to give birth.
Yeah.
And then I discovered you could give birth where you choose. You can have somebody that's called a midwife. You know, you
Yeah.
could even have a free birth. You could like, there were so many options that had no idea about. So
No.
anyways, I know. So my mind,
Okay. This
so I
this
haven't even
mind
got
melt.
into the part, but yeah,
Yeah, no. Hey, this is, we know each other. We knew this was going to roll this way. And come on, you said it right there. This is everything. That's what I wrote down. And so this should not be, these are our babies. This is our family. This is our whole world. You know, I've shared the message with you before. What very much jumped into my mind there when I heard you share, like the moment you saw those births and you saw that transition to motherhood and you saw that child, you know, make their way here, and you just go, okay, the NBA finals and the Olympics don't compare to this. I love,
nothing. Like,
yeah, and I get that, and anybody who's made this journey definitely gets that. It's very similar to, I can remember in our kitchen many years ago having a conversation with Christina after Oliver and his birth and all the transformation that chiropractic and the nervous system was able to give to him. And she said, you know, prior to all this, I just thought that, like, when you guys as chiropractors, when you said, hey, let's go change the world, she's like, I thought, even my own husband, she's like, you're nuts, man. Why don't you chill it off, chill it back just a little bit, right? Like change, change the world. Well, that baby right there in your arms is literally your world. Our kids are our world. So sports can be this really awesome thing to bring entertainment and whatever to the world. And I think most people, same standard upbringing, go, oh, well, that's everything. And so, especially within chiropractic, I know the chiropractors out there are listening, like, how many of us started that? That was my journey. I wanted to be the Minnesota Twins and the Minnesota Vikings team chiropractor. And now I'm like, athletes? Nah. You know, kids, pregnant moms? Yeah. You know, and yeah. So, okay. So I love earlier too.
They'll come over to the nervous system based.
One of my favorite posts that caught me just this week, we're taking care of this wonderful woman, Meg, who is an endurance athlete, a CrossFit athlete. You know, she's not in the stage of life and motherhood yet. And she made a post. She had always been going to typical chiropractors, you know, where we both got our start, kind of sports rehab chiropractic, not nervous system chiropractic. And she ran a race this weekend, and just her words, I don't want to butcher them, just the post struck us in the best of way, because she said, I had no idea that taking care of my nervous system could mean that I could achieve my goals for life, that I could feel this way, function this way. She was just so proud. She was just so inspired and confident in herself because her nervous system finally got back online. Well, now when we're in this conversation with pregnancy and babies, this isn't just yourself, right? This is mom and baby's nervous system united. So speaking of intersection, so here's my question and it's story and teaching at the same time. You said your original journey and spark into BIRTHFIT was your intersection as a chiropractor, a coach, you know, the fitness and that part, and then the doula. Now what you're seeing, I'm sure, is that the intersection to success in each of those jobs, whether you're the mom's chiropractor, whether you're their coach, whether you're their doula, the intersection to the success of that goal for that family being met is really dependent upon the nervous system, right?
I knew you were
talking
going to say that. Yes.
Yeah. And so
absolutely
what does
why
that mean?
It's absolutely why I came full circle. So you mentioned like birth. We mentioned, like, we talked about birth being mind melting. This little child's our whole world. To this little child, that mom is their whole world. And that's all they know. And I don't know like what clicked in me, but it was like the minute I started like just really zoning in on these babies coming out and coming earthside and looking up at their mom and making eye contact, and I get like heebie-jeebies still, but that's when I knew, like, and I didn't have words for it, like that mother baby dyad is priceless. There's nothing on earth that can compare to that bond between that mother and baby. And so that's when I started thinking about, okay, as chiropractors, we're, you know, trying to, and I say in quotations, fix the problem later on in life, but why not take it a step back? Okay, go to pediatrics. Okay, take it a step back, go to birth. Okay, take it a step back, go to pregnancy. Awesome. Take it one step even further and go preconception. Then you're cleaning out cobwebs of the closet and you're like almost offering this kiddo this new life here on earth, a blank canvas from which to just expand and grow and develop exponentially. But anyways, let me go back to whenever I realized, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to be in the birth world. I quit my job. Great job, great money making, etc. And I started working at 2 different birth centers in Los Angeles. And so this is where I got really like hands-on experience. This was awesome. I worked for a CNM, a certified nurse midwife, and a CPM, a certified professional midwife. And at the time I was like, game on, call me middle of the night, whatever. I've done my doula training. I've done hypnobirthing. I've done ICA childbirth educator. I was like fully like ready to go no matter what time. And that's where I gained a ton of experience. And as you said, the loop between all of it, chiropractic, birth, movement, coaching, is the nervous system. And that's where I started kind of like, okay, that's the one underlying theme, but I don't know how to sync it all together. I don't know how to connect all the dots. So then I started working on mindset and affirmations, and I really got big. Hypnobirthing led me to NLP, because then you're starting to play with the thought patterns of one's brain. And so I became an NLP practitioner. And, if I would take on doula clients, I would really have them start to shift the way they think about things, or preconception clients shift the way they think about things. So that was happening. All in the back of my mind also, I've been really good friends with a guy you may know by the name of Stan Home. And and then another good friend of mine is Dr. Jeremy Brook in Los Angeles. And another kind of mentor of mine in the beginning of chiropractic school was Dr. Billy DeMoss. So I've been exposed to like the legit chiropractic philosophy. And there was one talk at the Dead Chiropractic Society, which we all used to go to at Billy D's office. All of us, non-conformist at SCUS. So we would cruise down to Newport Beach and go to these talks. But the one that blew my mind was Dr. Jen Tempo basically talking about the 33 principles. And that, like, I used to write those out and just like put them on my wall or like read them every now and then. But that made so much sense to me. And then when I came to the birth world, when you read those and you know about birth and you've been exposed to birth, it's like chiropractic is onto something, like, for lack of a better term.
So when we talk about the 33 principles in chiropractic, moms and dads and everyone, it is honestly, I don't want to just simplify them too much because we have such reverence for them and they've changed our lives and millions of patients as a result, but they're principles around natural health and healing. And very specifically, the fact that our design says, okay, well, the main system that makes that happen is the nervous system, this connection between brain and body. And speaking of connection through the nervous system, well, that connection that Lindsey was speaking about from baby to mom, that's what literally forms that connection. That's what builds that connection. That's what is that connection. There's actually anatomy to it. When in utero, that umbilical cord is the power cord. So as Lindsey says it, that baby's the hitchhiker on mom's nervous system. And so if you love that, and this is a different journey for all of us, wherever this podcast episode lands you, you might be making a comeback too, like, Lindsey did, right? Because what I'm hearing here is you fell in love with the philosophy. Yeah, fell in love, got caught up in a cool thing, right? Sports and Hollywood and everything else.
I opened a gym with, an ex, and, I opened a gym.
Had to bring it back.
That's where I got really heavy into the movement aspect of it. And I started learning about down regulation and through movement and the polyvagal theory. Stan and I would geek out on the polyvagal theory right after school. But I think that's where I had to get the movement and feel it in my body. And I got exposed to things like DNS, dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, powerlifting, weightlifting, strongman, yoga tune-up, yoga teacher training, like all these became tools in my tool belt. And so I think I did have to do those things to feel them in my body and add to my journey. So long story short, when I decided to leave Los Angeles, there was a breakup and I was like, okay, I gotta go. I gotta get back to Texas. So that was 2017-ish, 2018. I knew at that time, and let me just say, side note, we started touring like a band, like going around the country teaching seminars for BIRTHFIT in 2017, 2018, and 2019, which is awesome. And it was a great experience. But when I decided to leave Los Angeles, that was 2018, I knew that I wanted to open a practice. I also knew I wanted to be nervous system focused because I started seeing Stan and I started seeing my new friend Morgan. She just opened her practice and I was like, they're on to something. Like these two are rocking their practices. They're talking the talk. That's what I want to do. So I knew when I got back to Texas, at some point I wanted to open a practice in nervous system base and I needed to know how to do it. So when I moved to Austin, I asked Morgan if she needed an associate because I had been out of practice for 2 years, like touring and teaching and whatever. And she said, yeah, I'll take an associate part-time. And I was like, I don't care what you pay me. I just want to learn. I need to get back in the swing of things. So I worked with Morgan for about 1.5 years, and that's where I came across Dr. Tony and the PX experience. And she was like, well, if you work here, you got to sign up for PX. I was like, game on. I heard about this through Dr. Stan. Great. I was going to sign up for it anyways. So then I became exposed to the pediatric experience, and it just made so much sense to me, like family practice way, like, okay, I'm going to open a practice 10 years, 12 years after I graduate school. I need a playbook, like I ain't got time to waste. So you had the playbook.
Yeah.
That's
so
how I got back to Texas.
Okay. Oh my goodness. So I love this because you are just dropping each time within this element. You're just, I mean it. And that's why it took so long to introduce you. I just know that you know your stuff, and the stuff oh man, buddy, the world needs to know it. Moms in particular need to know it. So the playbook. So now I'm going to pull on that word and we're going to go to that next. So the playbook for pregnancy. So let's compare two different playbooks. The medicalized, first we must diagnose you as pregnant. Well, and we can go all the way back. Maybe what we do is we save a deeper dive into preconception and fertility. I mean, I don't want to skip it by any means, but for one episode, we might want to go deep one place and then come back and do that again. So the playbook for getting pregnant and then the playbook for once you are, I'll run through it really quick because I want you to run through the ideal, optimal playbook that you literally put into BIRTHFIT and now are going to partner up with us at PX, and we're going to bring this incredible 4 moms, 4 babies playbook to them, because the standard playbook sucks. Okay. And it is so that word doesn't do it justice. We've so disempowering.
We've tried it. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Good point. I always tell people all the time, this is my sports analogy. Thankfully I live in Chicago where these are 3 things: the weather, the sports teams, and the politics all suck. So patients are like, so when it comes to what we're going to talk about in the office, none of those 3 things, those are not pleasant conversations. Let's talk about your nervous system. Let's talk about your health. It's a nice default, right? But using the sports analogy, like, why do you think the Cubs fire their head and the Bears fire their head coach every 2 to 3 years? Because the results are awful. So if they're going to get different results, they need to get a different leader. In this space, that's called a different provider. In this conversation in particular, I am very intentional not to say a different doctor, because to rock your birth, you don't necessarily need that kind of traditional OB doctor. And the best ones, the best OBs, like Dr. Stu, whose podcast interview will be coming out right around yours, he said it best. He said, well, once I learned what midwives are and who they are and what they do, he's like, dang, they're better at this than us, So, okay, playbook. The medical playbook, really simplified because it's just not the fun one to talk about. So we want to send and empower and create action for moms to come into the BIRTHFIT world, to come into the PXOX world, so you can get the antithesis of this not good outcomes playbook, which is first, you need to be diagnosed almost as pregnant in this world. Instead of, oh my goodness, awesome, it's, oh my God, you got pregnant after the age of 35? I think Dr. Lindsey can jam on this when we get going. And so, oh my goodness, everything's wrong because you're pregnant. So we're going to give you all of these tests, all of this fear, all of this, toxins, all of this stress, and then we're going to have you show up in the place where sick people show up, and then that's where you're going to have a healthy baby and a healthy delivery. So I'm very much short-circuiting this medical playbook to pregnancy, but it has been, what we like to say in our office, medicalized to the nth degree. And once they have mom into the medical playbook and system, you better believe they don't plan on letting baby out either, right? So once baby gets earthside, well, now there's a new quarterback, for that medical playbook called the pediatrician, and they take over. And how are those outcomes? Awful. And so we're here to have a different conversation that leads us in a different direction of actions, which leads to different providers, which leads to different outcomes based upon the care that we can provide you. So I want you to go good, all right? Because I know if I let you down the deep, dark medical world, I might not get you back, buddy. So you're in charge. Go right ahead. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned in the beginning, birth affects us all. Period. Birth affects us all. How we are born affects us all, whether you like it or not. Dr. Tony just explained basically the process by which a woman goes through. 98% of the women go through in our country, in America. We spend close to $100 billion on birth in America. And we have one of the worst mortality rates, maternal mortality rates for an industrialized country, and one of the worst infant mortality rates for an industrialized country. Also, our children have never been sicker. And I'm a firm believer that what we do 3 months prior to conception to that first 2 years of life, that is the biggest window of health that will influence years, that will influence your health into your 70s, 80s, and beyond, if you're lucky to live.
Generations to come with epigenetics.
Yeah. So, when I started looking at the numbers, and all you have to do is look at the research, as Dr. Stu will say, and he picks apart research. So definitely listen to his podcast. But when you start looking at the numbers, it's like, oh my God, we keep spending money on the same process and it's not working. We're becoming sicker and sicker and sicker. Women are becoming more and more depleted, more and more depressed, more and more anxious. They feel like the power is outside their body. It is a really sad state where a woman goes in fearing birth, which should be the greatest day of her life. So to me, that's, that phrase or that quote that's like, why keep repeating the same thing? If there's no change, that's just crazy. So whenever I became a doula and I got exposed to basically the underground world or the alternative world at the time, now it's more known, like doulas, midwives, things like that. But, on one end of the spectrum, you can have a free birth, which is I call this the complete natural physiological birth. No interruptions, nothing. There's no medical assistance there, not even a midwife. You might have a friend, a homie there that, you trust. Then kind of in the middle is a more traditional midwife. Then you kind of get with this nurse midwife. Then you kind of get over here, and then you have like a birth center attached to the hospital. And then you have, OBs in the hospital, and then a cesarean at the far other end. Right now, our country has swung the pendulum so far, as you said, to this medicalized birth. And there's some states that have close to a 40% C-section rate, which is terrible.
Ours is that state.
Texas is not much better. Wow. But, the World Health Organization, which after COVID, you can think whatever, but they
And
recommend
before.
they recommend
Yeah.
that, the C-section rate be somewhere between 10 and 15%.
Yeah.
If you look at the research by Dr. Michelle Odant, who's a French OB, the more C-sections we have, we're going to start naturally selecting against our own oxytocin system, which is our feel-good hormone system. Which oxytocin is that warm hug. When you get a hug and you feel all warm inside, that's oxytocin. Oxytocin shows up in birth, in sex, in these amazing moments. It is not the same thing, just let me go off on tangent, as not the same thing as Pitocin. That's a synthetic version of oxytocin, and it makes your uterus contract from 0 to 100. It's not gradual. So anyways, we're at a mess. It's a hot mess.
It is.
And
here's what take you down this road. So, because what I asked you here is exactly this. It is, it's a huge flipping gap, because literally what we have to start with is we have to start with exactly what Dr. Lindsey took us through to say, okay. And I love that you took us through those different options. Almost, I could visually see that as you were saying the different options for birth, from free birth all the way down to, intervention in a hospital. I love that, because I think that gives us the visual of how far apart it is. And then also it starts with this big understanding, and we have this in prenatal and we have this in pediatrics. We don't have to kind of sort of make a few subtle little shifts to get back online with our health. We have to make a seismic, massive shift and movement. So BIRTHFIT and PX aren't here to coddle it and say, oh, if we just... Yeah, we can't. That wouldn't be fair to families out there if we said, oh, let's just make a few iterations to this system. No, we need to make pretty much an obliteration to the system and rebuild it from the principles, we would say, from the principles of chiropractic and natural health and birth on. And here's what's also cool. I just want to pull on this for a second. The other thing you can see about that sequence of the different interventions, moms, what we love most, I know that this is how it went for our family. When you begin with a goal in mind, when you begin with the birth, we'll say on the one end of that ladder or pendulum that you love most, that is most congruent to you, that is most aligned with you, that will be most empowering to you, that will be most oxytocin, just talk about a volcano of oxytocin coming at birth. That's where that happens, and neurological bond. And then if the plan doesn't go according to plan, okay, well now we have that pendulum can swing towards the 10%, right? Like the WHO says. It doesn't mean that goes away. We're not saying, it's not incredible and it's not life-saving and it's not going to be needed. But what happens is the medical system just plops a mom into that default playbook, and it's just so many moms and so many babies just continue to arrive there and get stuck there because they don't even know about the options on the other side of the pendulum. So, Lindsey, in that component, now ideally, right? Ideally, we start at least 3 months before a baby. And then ideally, we start having these empowering conversations, these mind shift conversations. And then we start taking care of a certain essential system, right? So when you assess a woman on her journey to motherhood, maybe early, and I want to get a broad view, and then let's go to each stage. So when you assess in your clinic in Willow House, I know right now, you're just getting back rocking and rolling there with your beautiful babe along. But when we've had these conversations about HRV and nervous systems and what a mom is up against to try and conceive naturally, and then to take the pregnancy, rock it all the way through, and have the birth of her dreams. When you assess nervous systems of moms through this journey, what are they up against? Where can we direct moms in terms of their health, what's most important, where to get started, and we can layer on as we go, but what's the foundation for them to really focus on?
Okay, so I love how Dr. Tony's trying to rein me in on so many different
Hey,
things.
buddy, when I have to rein some, this is a hard job for me. I'm not very rein-inable. So my HRV is not good right now, trying to be the one who keeps us organized on a podcast. This is the hardest job I've ever had in my life. And I don't want to do it. I actually want to go on 72 rants together for 70 hours. So I love you. Thank you for
You're doing great. Okay, so first of all, this will probably I'm gonna say a few things. People might get triggered. Remember, your emotions are your responsibility. The system is not going to change if we're operating within the system. So let that sink in. As you were saying, like, we gotta have new philosophies, new values, etc. The other thing I want to say is you've got to take radical responsibility for your health. You, the mom, you, the dad, your family. And this is one conversation I have, with every mom that comes into the office, that reaches out via BIRTHFIT. You've got to start getting clear on what it is that is your wellness or health philosophy. That starts way before conception. Because another thing I like to say is we birth how we live. Birth is absolutely a lifestyle thing. And there was a post, I forget when I did it, but like birth is absolutely, we show up in birth how we live. And if we're not surrendering in other parts of our life, then how do we expect to surrender in birth when it's super intense? So anyways, let's start there. Radical responsibility.
Wow.
So that is like with radical responsibility comes great freedom, but you got to try that on because it's responsibility. So we start talking about nervous system, nourishment, and movement all in the office, and how they can enhance that outside of the office. Like, I want to give them free tools. Okay, get some sunshine, go on a 20-minute walk in the morning. No screen time 30 minutes before bed. What can you do to nourish? Like, one of my big questions is, what can you do to nourish your nervous system? And that's going to feel different for everyone, because it may be a hot bath, it may be a walk, it may be a Zumba class, it may be a CrossFit class, whatever. Maybe reading a good book, putting your feet on the ground in the grass in nature, whatever. But start to compile a list of what nourishes your nervous system, and that's going to carry over preconception, pregnancy, postpartum, throughout. It'll even show up in birth, I guarantee it.
Let's do this though. So you are practicing right now clinically, and I know how nerdy that sounds, but like we're in the thick of the perfect storm for moms and kids. And so I love nervous system nourishment and regulation, but for the majority of our patients, and you know this better than even I do, that beginning of the patient, so nervous system focused chiropractor relationship with mom, that nervous system is busted up. It's really, it's not just dysregulated, it's in disrepair. And so it needs what we would call nervous system repair first. So take us there. So let's go. I know this podcast is different, right? We like to get right into the granular stuff with moms too. We're always going to have so much incredible stuff in terms of, health and wellness promotion. But when we get into the thick of it, we see these HRVs, we see thermal and EMG scans on our preconception and pregnant moms, and they are just a mess. So in the office, what is needed, what is recommended for, and I know we hate talking about averages because we build custom care plans for every single mom, but if you do categorize, what do they need chiropractically in the nervous system department?
I mean, dream would be, woman comes to me preconception, we look at her HRV. If that HRV is out of the green zone, which is, green, orange, red, or falls outside the green zone, then I know she's depleted. She's operating, sympathetic dominant mode. She's operating, and we say this in BIRTHFIT, in her masculine energy more than probably her feminine energy. She's like got time caps. She's doing the percentages and the weights and the everything in the gym rather than just going with the flow. So when a woman comes to me preconception, I want that HRV in the green, and I want it in the green for at least 3 months. 90 days to 120 days would be ideal, because that's how long it takes to make a quality egg and sperm. Ideally, your partner, husband, boyfriend, whoever is there. Sure. So that would be ideal. If somebody is going the IVF route, like embryo transfer, IVF, IUI, same thing. I want that in the green for 3 months, because if your body's operating in protection mode, it's not going to be ready to expand and receive the implantation. Nada. It's not going to happen.
So in those cases, how long is it taking you to because if we need to get there and stay there for 3 months. So I love the timing of this. Number one question, and moms, you should ask this, 100,000% ask this of your doctors. What I love about our PX Docs network, we are trained, we get into the weeds with this, obviously, way more in our clinical training than even here on this parent facing podcast. But when parents ask us a question, hey, when can I expect to see changes? Of course, we don't have a neurological crystal ball and be able to see that to that degree, but we do have clinical experience, clinical protocols. We have some pretty good expectations of that based upon patient populations. So when this ideal case comes in, and let's say they're very, very sympathetic dominant, very vagus nerve exhausted, and they're low on the HRV. So they are shifted out of balance with dysautonomia, and they've reached that stage of neurological exhaustion, adrenal depletion, their metabolism and their endocrine system is sluggish. How long at, say, 3 times a week of adjustments does it typically take to get them in the green first?
I would say minimum 6 months.
Yeah. So you're looking at 6 to 9 months. So 6 months to get there.
Back it up. Yes. So women want to hear, they come in, they want to be pregnant yesterday.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, well, I wish I could have seen you yesterday. I wish I could have seen you 2 years ago. I share with them, like, I went through the same journey. I opened an office, my HRV tanked. So I had to work on that for a year to get my HRV back in the green. It took me about 9 months to get my HRV back in the green.
All right, perfect. Run with that. This is the perfect place to bring a beautiful baby girl into this conversation then. Okay, so I knew some of that, but not all of that. So made the move, opened the office, got your amazing partners, seeing patients, training, growing, going, and so your nervous system got off track, got out of balance, took 9 months to get there. Use your beautiful baby girl as the perfect playbook of how'd you prepare, nervous system chiropractic, got in the green, how'd you stay in the green to get pregnant, and then the mic is yours, buddy. Run it out. How did this go? Because it went freaking awesomely, right? Yeah. And I
couldn't have had a better experience. And I really attribute it to chiropractic. And, I'm lucky I've been schooled in chiropractic my whole adult life. And, I hope you listening to this podcast get a little ounce of how important it is. So I've always made it, even when I wasn't nervous system based, I've always made it a point to get adjusted once a week, minimum. So in LA, I was getting adjusted by my friend, Dr. Jeremy Brook. When I moved back here and I started working with Morgan, we would adjust each other. And just to share with the audience, like I've had a miscarriage. I got pregnant first try 2020 and then miscarried in the first trimester, which for me, I think it was absolutely necessary, because that experience taught me how to trust my body even deeper. And I could have looked at it, as a negative experience, but oh my gosh, God was watching out for us. He was like, you and Lance need to get your shiznit together. He was, working off in the Gulf, underwater welding. He decided to complete shift in the career and become an electrician so he could be home. But, I think that experience definitely taught me just the power that made the body heals the body. And I did that whole miscarriage experience natural at home with the support of, chiropractic care. I got adjusted, and acupuncture. So fast forward, right after that is when we started planning and, moving down south to open an office. Well, okay, adrenals go kaput. You're, all hours of the night. It's natural, and I almost expected it. So I think, with women out there have crushed adrenals. Women out there, we have an epidemic of low metabolism in women, or like slow metabolism. Thyroids are sluggish. And I would say the biggest thing is, I had to really be conscious of getting adjusted 2 to 3 times a week. I had to really be conscious of eating enough. Like, whether I was hungry or not, I would set my alarm on the phone and eat every 2 to 3 hours. And I would eat a protein and fat, protein and carb, whatever. But there was no naked carbs. There was no like protein priority. And I shifted to a complete, probably animal-based, like 80% of my meals. I was consuming raw milk every day. I was consuming raw eggs. I went hard in the paint there. Organs. We promote heart and soil supplements over on BIRTHFIT, and I think they're fabulous. But yeah, I went even more ancestral than I probably was.
Did you just say hard? Did you just say hard in the paint using, is that a basketball analogy I just heard from you, my friend? Okay. All right. Perfect. This isn't going to come out until May, but we are recording this at the kickoff of March Madness. So maybe this wonderful woman is inspired by the season there.
It's a phrase I use sometimes. I'm not even a basketball player. But yeah, I went hard in the paint on the animal products.
Heck yeah. I wanted to have fun with it. And it's also crucial because, it's like, oh, I'm just eating a healthy diet. And we've been so mistaken to be like, a healthy diet is light on protein and full of fruits and veggies and your prenatal supplement. And in this world, to nourish a rock star mom in this journey, because you're going to be nourishing yourself and nourishing your baby. Oh yeah. Heart and soil, baby.
Yeah. And I felt like, looking back now, I felt like the first time I was pregnant, I was like surface level healthy. Whereas the second time, obviously with Vera, like I had added so much depth, so much nutrient stores. And, you can even look at pictures of me, like first time I was shredded, 6-pack, no boobs. Second time I had some boobs and a little soft around the edges. And I think, women need to see that. And so I shared those pictures on Instagram. I'll share them again one day. But it's okay to have a little, like in your mothering years, you need softness around the edges. So anyways, that was once
awesome.
I literally did a scan. I think it was the beginning of December of 2022. And that was the first time I noticed my HRV was in the green. And then we conceived basically that window right after Christmas between New Year's. And for me, I kind of like I was like, okay, God, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Almost like threw it up in the air. And so we went to New Mexico. We hung out in Albuquerque for my birthday weekend. And then we got back in mid-January. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't had my period. And I took a pregnancy test and I was pregnant. I was like, oh, wow. Okay, we're doing this. And I just turned 40 years old. I was like, what? Mind blown.
No.
Yeah. And
so did your HRV stay in the green January, February, March? Yeah.
For the most part, it stayed in the green. I'm
Beautiful.
trying to think if there was any dips. I'll have to look. If any, it was like right at the base.
Right.
But for the whole pregnancy, which is natural, there's very little research out there, but they say HRV dips trimester by trimester and then spikes just before birth.
Yeah, that our favorite paper on earth, right? Which is hard to say because we love the research, but that fetal development and HRV paper, when you study the heck out of that graph, it's really incredible. And they were using some HRV. They had to use multiple forms of HRV technology because this is like new emerging research. It really is. I mean, we feel very experienced in this conversation from a clinical practice and just an understanding of nervous system and health and pregnancy. But from a research perspective, HRV is just coming of age, not only not only on your wrist or on your ring, right, with your Aura ring, which is the company most connected to fertility and that, but and pregnancy and cycles, but Whoop and everything else. So what's exciting for Dr. Lindsey and I in our world and your world, the world of babies, we can actually finally start to make this flip, this massive seismic shift we talked about before, because we can actually leverage technology to really help dictate our health as we go along. But yes, in that paper, there is those critical junctions where it's like, okay, this is mom's nervous system's really got to work hard. Well, when your nervous system, when your body's got to work hard, the sympathetics aren't the worst thing in the world. I always get worried. I've shared this with you before, Lindsey. They're not the bad guy. And I worry that I'm the guy that makes them the bad guy, because I talk so much about it in that world, like growth and development. You got to have some sympathetic surges, to get growth and development on the inside, pregnancy and fetal development, baby development, and on the outside. Awesome. Okay. So keep it going, because HRV stays green. You prioritize it. You've been teaching this stuff for a decade plus. So now I see you living it. You lived it all the way through. And where did it take you to this beautiful girl named Vera?
So I think one of the biggest lessons initially in my pregnancy was that I needed to slow down, like really slow down. And that was a little bit around 9 weeks. I started experiencing some bleeding, and it was old blood. Like if you look at the color of it, it was like the musty red. So who knows what it was from, old period or, part of the placenta, who knows? But that like caught my eye, caught my heart. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, what's going on here? What's my baby telling me? What's my body telling me? And so that's when I cut my shifts down from basically every day to 2 days a week. And my whole pregnancy, and I almost knew this before, that I've done all the research I could do. I needed to tune in during pregnancy. I needed to go inward. Excuse me. So the biggest things I did day to day was my prayer practice, my meditation practice, and I would say my affirmations out loud. And, just to give you an idea, like my affirmations were, I get to birth my baby. I am deserving of the home birth I desire. I am worthy of the home birth I desire. And then I would move a little, do the BIRTHFIT basics so I could feel it in my body. And that's how I started every day. I maybe missed 5 days throughout my whole entire pregnancy.
Did you put them together? Did those affirmations and those declarations, did they ever continue while you were walking or while you were working out? Did you intentionally mix? Yeah, that's what Christina did. Yeah, when we were there, there's always this big hill she would walk up to, and she would turn the music or the podcast off, whatever she had. She'd take this massive hill, and that was when she'd combine those two incredible forces of mindset and affirmations and fitness and movement, right?
Yeah. So I probably walked an average of 3 miles a day, and one of those is like a hill loop. And there's a spot at the top where I would stand and I would say a big prayer, and then I would say the things out loud. And this spot means so much to us because actually a year and a half, like April 22, is when I was walking our dog, and he literally passed away in that spot. He was running, jumping, having the time of his life. And then come to find out he had a tumor on his heart that bursted. But we like to say, like, he was just so full of love. He just expanded. Yeah. So that walk means so much to us. And we walked it every day. I walked it in labor. And now Vera and I walk it probably 3 or 4 times a week now. Wow. But okay, fast forward. I'm going through pregnancy, literally going inward. The only book I read during pregnancy was this book called Portal by one of my mentors, Yolanda Norris Clark. And she might be a little radical for some. She's basically the pioneer of free birth, and she's had 10 free births. Just had her 10th. Yeah. Yeah. The book is awesome. And then and radical,
and this is what I want to pull on. Radical for you is perfect, because of the way God made you and what you and Lance were going for. And so I think what we all need to do is when we look at a provider, when we look at a birth, when we look at hypnobirthing versus Bradley or Christian hypnobirthing versus, we just have to go, what's absolutely spot on, freaking perfect for me? And that's the direction you move, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yolanda's just resonated with me for so long.
Awesome.
And calling out the industrial medical complex and, taking responsibility for my own health and my journey. And so we did a call with her once during pregnancy, and then my pregnancy got cut short because Vera decided to come at 36 weeks.
Yep.
And my water started leaking. Literally, I think it was like the day, if you're charting, it's literally the day I turned 36 weeks. And I called my husband. I was like, I know what's happening. My water's leaking. He was like, well, how do you feel? And I was like, well, I feel great, otherwise. And he was like, well, I'll work a half day. Let's meet at the house at noon. We'll meet the midwife I had. And, just to let everybody know, I didn't do any of the standard prenatal tests. Like I did no ultrasounds. I did no GBS testing. I actually did a glucose monitor for 2 weeks because I'd never done that and I thought it would be interesting. Yeah. But other than that, I did nothing. And that's what felt really good to me. Might not be for everyone, but when I'm thinking about, I just want to say this, when I'm thinking about the baby's nervous system and how it's forming in the first trimester, like there's no way I could do an ultrasound. Like that freaking technology is not proven safe and effective for that use. So go research that. But I didn't do anything, no vaginal exams, nothing. And so
for your blood sugar, you didn't want to slam Jolt Cola, then orange version of Jolt Cola, and see how that jolted you and baby into that. So
because if you actually read the ingredients of it,
yeah, I know. But the 2-week monitor, but what great data you were able to learn, I'm sure, over those 2 weeks. I'm sure that helped kind of really extra dial in your nutrition and your workouts, right? Because you're actually checking it as you go about life versus one random moment, in it. Yeah, that's awesome.
What was interesting was there's a really great gelato place that makes their gelato from their own white buffalo out here. And rice spiked my blood sugar more than the gelato. I was like,
there you go.
So more gelato.
Meant to be. Yeah. Good for gelato fans out there. You're genetically programmed for gelato from White Buffalo. That makes sense, actually. Knowing you like I do, I'm not that surprised by that now.
Yeah. So okay. So we got back to the house. So I had a certified professional midwife, a CPM. She had a student. Long story short, she felt tied by the legalities of things. So her license only allows her to assist a birth at home 37 weeks to 42 weeks. Well, I was 36. Yep. And so she had us sign something, we released from care. Her advice was to go to the hospital, get induced. Well, that did not sit well with me or my husband. And, one of the questions, and I think this is a very important question that we asked ourselves in the beginning of pregnancy, even on our first date, I asked my husband if he would be open to a home birth. And so one of the first questions is, if everything went perfectly dreamlike, your birth experience, everything went perfect, where would you want to be? And then, okay, you got the answer to that. Yeah. If nothing went right, if there was, because there's two sides to this coin. There's birth and death.
Yes, there is.
And if death was involved, where would you want to be? And both me and my husband throughout the whole journey said home as well. And so when this happened at 36 weeks and we got released from care, he was like, let's do this. And so in that moment, we were prepared to free birth. We're prepared to birth on our own at home. And I just get the chills because my husband, he's learned so much about birth through me, but he literally told me, he was like, you're 40, you're going to be labeled high risk when you go to the hospital. you have not taken a GBS test, you're going to be labeled GBS positive, whether you are or not. So antibiotics are going to be, they're going to administer them.
Yeah.
And because 36 weeks, baby's going to go automatically to the NICU. And
Yeah.
he could not imagine separating or choosing between who to accommodate, mom or baby. And like, that's kind of brings tears to my eyes, because he was like, I would rather be home with both of y'all, even if I were to lose one of y'all. And that's, that's such a personal choice. And we talked about this with Yolanda, because not everybody would feel okay with that, but my husband, being a Marine, he's faced death, he's, been deployed. He's so calm, cool, and collected. Like,
Yeah.
I think I'm calm, cool, and collected. Like, he's way more.
Yes.
But so we're like, okay, you're good with this, you're good with this, I'm good with this. And then we decided to call Dr. Stu. And I think that was like just such a breath of fresh air. He got on FaceTime with us Friday night, and he was like, you could go a whole week if you wanted to, but I guarantee you'll have that baby by Monday. And we're like, really? So Lance's like, okay, let me set up the tub. Like, we gotta organize, get ready. So long story short, after we talked to Dr. Stu, he told us you could free birth, or you need to find a CNM, a certified nurse midwife in Texas. Every state has different laws. So a CNM in Texas can attend births at 36 weeks. The day before, I went to dance class and I ran into my friend Lauren, who's a CNM, and she had gotten back from travel. This was like serendipitous. And so she literally told me, she was like, I'm on call now. One of my clients is 36 weeks. I was like, whoa, that's where I learned about 36 weeks. And so we got off the phone with Dr. Stu. We texted my friend Lauren. We're like, hey, do you want to attend my birth? And she was like this weekend? We're like, probably. So
I was like, yeah, when you're thinking, let me send the Eventbrite invite over here. Yeah, totally. How about now?
Yeah. So, I kept
wow,
checking.
that's God. That's
God had
God
his
right
hand in
there.
every bit of it. Absolutely. So she was like, yeah, I'll come over Saturday. We went to sleep Friday night. I started having contractions like around 1 or 2. They were chill. Woke up, had breakfast, went on our walk. And then we met with Lauren. Then I had my acupuncturist come over, and then contractions started picking up. Active labor by like 8 p.m. Vera was born on our back porch, because we put the birth tub on the back porch. Like, I had this vision from day one that I was going to be in nature birthing. And so Lance and his dad built a deck so he could put the birth tub on the back deck. Just because I knew I was like, I loved being in nature during pregnancy. I loved being in the sun, even if it was 100 degrees. It was 100 degrees in August in Texas. But gave birth 1:24 a.m. Sunday, and Vera was absolutely perfect. Like, I could feel literally her moving down in my body with each breath. And I would not describe any bit of my labor or birth as painful. I would describe it like it was the best trip of my life. It was like blissful, and it was literally the portal to God. And I think I want that for every woman. Like, I truly believe that every woman can have the birth they desire. And it was everything. And I think also every woman is going to be challenged on her values and her philosophy at some point in that motherhood transition. And for me, it was at that 36-week mark. And I had to say, okay, what are my values? Am I making decisions out of love and not fear? Because if I would have made decisions out of fear and let fear drive the bus, I would have ended up at the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you prepare, but there's something really essential, and it's the least fun part of the preparation journey. You know, our favorite word, I've said this actually on a couple other podcasts too, you know, we're not really prevention experts, we're preparation experts, okay? We're preparing our body, we're preparing our nervous system, we're preparing our children to be the healthiest that they can be. And that actually, the word health in this frame right here, moms and dads, the word health actually needs to be synonymous with resilient and adaptable, not like in a bubble, right? Because stuff is going to come. These challenges are going to come. So what I love that you and Lance did, and it takes us back to Christine and I's journey. I remember sitting with our doula. I remember sitting with our midwife and having these, I remember sitting with each other and walking and praying and thinking of these outcomes. And you better believe our birth plan had preparations for the tough points, for the challenges, for the surprises. And we didn't enjoy, if I'm being honest, we didn't enjoy thinking through that, because the first inclination, if you haven't prepared your mind and gathered yourself with the right people, your first inclination is like, oh, well, if that happens, boom, we're gone. Fear, you know, medicine. No, not if that's not right for you. If that happens, then this. And that's my dream for healthcare. Actually, Lindsey, what we're really on right here is my full freaking dream for the perfect storm. People say all the time, you know, what's your full expression of your dream and your vivid vision for the perfect storm? And obviously, if I gave a, you know, what everybody thinks would be the answer, it's like every preconception, every pregnancy, every labor and delivery, there'll never be another intervention. There'll never be another storm. I'm not going to give that as an answer, because that's not real. The real answer is more than right now by a large margin. Go wonderfully, go optimally, go Vera-ly, okay, in that way. But also, when trouble hits, we're there. We're there with our perspective. We're there with our adjustments, and we're there with our community and our support. And what I love about your story here, my friend, is you were prepared for those tough decisions, and you handled them in the way that was perfect for your family. And I mean those words too. There isn't a way that everyone should handle everything. There's the way that you, your husband, your family should make that decision. And in order to make that decision, you need informed information. You need empowerment. You need access to this information. And so that's why we bring PX Docs. That's why we bring Lindsey to the podcast. That's why we're going to bring Dr. Stu and Dr. Ali and so many others to the podcast. That's why we're going to do a deep dive into C-section. I'm going to do a deep dive into induction and vacuum and everything else. We're going to bring this information to it. What I want to ask as kind of one of our final questions here, buddy, is, and I think it's going right where you were going, so it'll just put those two worlds together. After being immersed in that birth world for a long time, teaching, guiding, empowering, adjusting, coaching, and then experiencing it on your own, did anything surprise you and create this massive shift in your perspective? Or maybe if it wasn't a surprise and a shift, did it solidify something that you could share with everyone? What was that thing?
Oh, I think it solidified, like BIRTHFIT even more, you know, like being absolutely adaptable, resilient, game ready for preconception, pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. You know, we didn't even talk about postpartum, but that requires so much preparation and planning. You know, the whole experience was just magical. But I will say, and I shared this on an Instagram post, I think it's pinned or something, but had I gotten pregnant and given birth 10 years ago, I don't think I would have had this amazing experience. I think I needed to go through so much unlearning and personal development and nutrition, nourishment. But at the base of it was chiropractic, you know, through all those chapters. I think I would have had a completely different birth experience. So, you know, trust the timing of God, because God knew what he was doing when he was like, okay, Lindsey, you're getting pregnant at 40 and you're going to have an awesome magical experience. And her name's going to be Vera, and that's going to mean faith, you know, like, it's so freaking cool. But yeah, I think it just solidified even more so my beliefs around radical responsibility, getting clear on your values and desires, and getting birth fit.
Yeah. So do you feel like, could I package it in these words that says it's solidified exactly to the T why you built BIRTHFIT and became a nervous system focused family chiropractor?
For sure.
Yeah. Our favorite, and you're part of the team. You know, one of the things, the phrase of the last 2 years that I continue to turn to Dr. Morgan and our team and everything. I just turn around all the time, and I've said it to you 1,000 times over, and I'm like, holy heck, it's working. Like, you know, you build all this, you dedicate your whole life to this, and you lay out this whole strategic plan, and you're like, here's my schedule, and here's my walk, and here's my loop, and here's my doctor, and here's my doula, and, you know, the list goes on. You build out all this effort, and you put out all this effort, and then when it works, it's the most beautiful, blissful, bonding you to your mission, bonding you to your baby thing. And every one of us, parents and families and moms and babies, and collectively, this world needs that. This just popped in. I'm going to take us back 2 chapters really quick because I want to share this. I think it's a great example in Lindsey's story in 2000. So that would be January 2023, obviously, right? Is when you found out you're pregnant. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
So 2023 was the year that Dr. Lindsey, myself, and so the BIRTHFIT world and the pediatric experience world, which is, you know, here we're on PX Docs platform, the Experience Miracles platform. So this is where PX takes this empowering information to parents and to the world and connects you with a trained and ready PX doctor. So I've been training doctors, and Lindsey's one of them, and her crew at Willow House. And so the one training program that is launching now this year, 2024, is our combined CERT program and clinical training. And I don't mean to go deep there at all, except to say that once Lindsey found out, yo, bro, I'm in the green and this baby's coming, then she called and texted me, and I got to be early in that journey. And we simply said, awesome. So we'll come back to this other thing when God and Vera say, and I bring that up, and I don't want to bring it up from my perspective because it's you. That was an easy decision. I don't know if you thought it was going to be easy. I'm assuming you did know that was going to be an easy decision for Christine and I, to, you know, and our 4 beautiful babies and all that we've done, to be like, cool, let's, you know, call us when later, you know, like, it's just, I bring that up in my affable way to say, there was a big decision for you to not take on a massive project in the middle of your pregnancy, which would have tanked your HRV and very likely robbed you of this experience with Vera. So moms out there and dads out there and families out there and providers out there, we got to be able to use these examples to say, you know what we're going to do this year? We're going to get that program done this year, and it's going to be freaking awesome. And how big of a difference is it from 12 months ago to now? None. You know, none at all. It's just God's design and God's journey. So I love you, my friend. I said it at the beginning. You and I especially, this could be a marathon. I always use the analogy now that I have a podcast to be like, I want to do these like high schoolers do lock-ins. You know, the youth group is like, we're just doing 48 hours. I would just turn on the mics and see if we could see how long we could make it. But what I want to do to our audience is, first off, collectively from them through me to you, say thank you for sharing your whole story and sharing so much of the information and resources. I also know that what we did today is we just gave them a tiny little peek into all the, all the impact that BIRTHFIT can provide. So we're going to put the links directly to the BIRTHFIT community. And moms, wherever you are on your journey, literally just if we found you in our favorite spot, which is prior to conception, right? And that goodness, get in the BIRTHFIT community. Wherever you are, the best way forward is forward. Get started. Get connected with Lindsey. Follow everything on Instagram. You will not only learn about everything we covered here today, you will be continually brought back to 1990s and 2000s hip hop via her Instagram, which I think is a very important part of nervous system regulation. If you grew up the way Lindsey and I did, then 2000s hip hop is how you regulate your your nervous system. Don't judge us, just join us. And so you'll find that there. Willow House, we'll put the links to their incredible practice if you are down in that beautiful area, which I got to get my butt down there and see that. Go there as well. But Lindsey, I wanted to make sure they know where to follow you and get connected with you. Hit the show notes. But I will leave it to you to take us home. Final message to these beautiful moms and families and, soon to be babies out there.
Yeah. Well, I said it earlier, and I think it's one of the more important phrases is you birth how you live. And that's why BIRTHFIT is a lifestyle. And that's why radical responsibility is one of our favorite phrases. And, nobody's going to do it for you. You have to do it. We can hold your hand, we can spot your lifts, but you're going to have to reach through another dimension to bring your baby earthside. And it can be so much fun. Like, you get to do this. Yes. How cool is that?
That's awesome. That's beautiful, beautiful message. Just drive right into that paint and make it happen, right, buddy?
Go hard in the paint.
Go hard in the paint. I butchered it, didn't I? And I'm taking Oliver to the basketball games this weekend too. My miracle man. So, all right, we're going hard in the paint with the Experience Miracles podcast. Moms, dads, everyone, please follow Lindsey on Instagram. Give her tons of love there. Get involved in the BIRTHFIT community, and please also share this podcast and this episode in particular with anybody and everybody anywhere on the motherhood journey. They are going to become so empowered and so informed and so much healthier for this podcast. Lindsey and Vera, looks like she is now watching on YouTube. She's awake now. She's ready. She's heard my voice before with all the training videos and everything you guys go to. Yeah, this guy, all he talks about is subluxation and the vagus nerve and, dealing hope. All right, ladies. We love you. Thank you. We'll come back and jam on postpartum. Sound like a plan?
Yeah, we got to.
Yeah, let's do that. We do got to. And get to. Bye-bye. All right. Yeah. Love you, homie. Talk soon.
Love ya. Bye.